Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another eMarketer Tech Talk, where we host amazing guests from all areas of media, ad tech, and martech. I'm Peter Allen Clark, Senior Analyst and Editor, Media Content at eMarketer, and today we'll learn what successful retail execution really looks like, including driving faster shopper conversions, making products stand out on the shelf, and finding the right balance between technology and human know-how. Joining me to discuss this is Sree Rajagopalan, Vice President of Executional Excellence at Mondelez International, who is joining us from Edmonton, Canada. Hello, Sree. How you doing?
Hello, glad to be here.
Yes, thank you for being here. Also joining us is Sean O'Dowd, Sales Director at Trax, joining us from New Jersey, a little closer to home here. How you doing, Sean?
I'm good, Peter. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you. Glad you're here. Audience, we'd also love to know where you're tuning in from, so feel free to drop it in the chat. You can also use the chat to send in any questions throughout today's session, and we'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can during the live Q&A in the second part of the show. But before we get to there, Sree and Sean have a great conversation planned for you today. And so with that, Sean, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter, for the introduction. Appreciate that. And thank you all for joining us today. Just quickly again, my name is Sean O'Dowd. I'm a sales director here at Trax, primarily working with our enterprise CPG partners and helping them solve complex retail execution solutions, or execution challenges. I've been with Trax for almost 7 years now. I live in New Jersey, and really excited to be here to share with you a little bit about who Trax is, as well as have a conversation with one of our great partners from Mondelez, Canada. So with that all said, I do want to give a quick background on Trax for those of you that may not be as familiar with us. So here at Trax, we really strive to achieve great retail execution across all walks of retail. And we do this primarily by helping our CPG partners achieve their retail execution goals through technology-driven solutions. And so I'm sure it's no surprise to anybody on this call, never mind year to year, but the requirements for great retail execution seem to change even week to week. And so with those challenges in mind, Trax has developed solutions that help our partners achieve their execution goals despite those challenges. And we do this all with the ultimate goal in mind of transforming the shopping experience overall. And what that really means is answering the call of shoppers as they are on that critical path to purchase. And essentially, what that looks like through our solutions is ensuring that our partners have the right products in the right place and at the right time. And we do that through our core solutions that you can see here. These are essentially the different solutions that Trax goes to market with and how we support our partners. First, we'll start with our image recognition capabilities. So Trax has been the leader, the global leader in image recognition for CPG and retail since 2010. And essentially what this means is by leveraging our computer vision technology along with a mobile application that can be utilized by a company-owned rep, our own rep, or a third party, we can be in retail stores collecting any area of the store and then recognizing in those images down to the SKU level what is there. And then ultimately those SKU tags become data points become KPIs, and KPIs become insights that our partners can leverage to take actionable steps to achieving their retail execution goals. In select markets, we also have a few other complementing capabilities. So first, I'll start with Trax execution. And essentially what this is an on-demand merchandising capability that we have, where we have a network of reps that we can send into stores and do any level of in-store merchandising activity that's needed. Additionally, we have Trax engagement, and this is through a shopper platform called Shopkick. So some of you may have heard of Shopkick, but Shopkick is essentially a platform that connects us to a network of shoppers. It really gamifies the shopping experience for them that allows us to drive trial, drive awareness, and ultimately drive purchases for specific products and brands. Also within the US, we have Trax Data, which is essentially a fast and flexible solution that allows us to get into stores and collect key data points very quickly. So all of these solutions can be utilized individually, but they can also be connected to create a really unique retail execution solution. So especially if you're in a market like the US. So if you can imagine, for just a brief example, you can leverage our image recognition technology to identify gaps in shelf or gaps in store. You can then deploy one of our merchandisers to then go fill and fix those gaps. And then once those gaps are filled, we can then send a shopper to one of those stores to actually purchase the product itself. Additionally, we can almost reverse engineer that, where we start with the shopper, and then that leads us to either execution or insights through our image recognition through a new capability that we call signal-based merchandising. So with that all said, you will see a QR code, throughout the presentation and at the end that you'll be able to scan that will allow you to connect directly with Trax, if you care to learn more, to see if there's an opportunity for us to support your business. But with that being said, I do want to turn our focus back to image recognition and our partnership with Mondelez Canada. So Trax and Mondelez have been partners for a number of years now. And we've seen some really great things happen along the way. So I'm excited to have a quick Q&A here with Sree around retail execution. But Sree, I'll pass it to you first to do a quick intro for the group.
Yeah, hi. First of all, thank you for having me on the webinar. My name is Sree. I lead executional excellence for Mondelez Canada in particular. So that's everything you see basically in store. And I've been in Mondelez for about 4.5 years. Prior to that, with several other CPG manufacturers, both across the US and Canadian markets. So I understand both equally well over the last 27 years or so, roughly. So happy to be here again.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us, Sree. So let's just get right into it. So tell us about the Mondelez retail execution journey. Where were the Mondelez teams as little as 2 to 3 years ago, and where are you all now when it comes to executing against your priorities?
Yeah, thank you, Sean. Maybe if it's okay, I'll go back a little over 3 years to maybe the time I started here with Mondelez, which is just over 4 years ago. It was a very different world. So I came from a different environment where we didn't have the categories we have at Mondelez, which were impulse and display driven. I'll start by saying we had a one-person e-com team. We didn't really have a digital agenda in Canada. We did across the globe, but we weren't there in Canada yet. And we didn't have the ecosystem, certainly on the retail execution side, to do what we can do today. We went from that day, and in all fairness, back then the retailer data was different. Loblaws was just getting into Lydia. Nobody really cared about last milers, and look where places like Instacart are at now. So things have evolved, and I think COVID and the aftermath is really what maybe accelerated what would have otherwise taken a long time to happen. But going from there, we quickly recognized first the gaps that we had from our physical restrictions, because given the categories we operate in, it's very important to know how much of our product is on display because of the impulse nature of it. And not being able to get around was a problem. Yes. So while companies were mastering the art of Zoom or MS Teams, we were also trying to master the art of how do we find out what's actually going on in the field, especially when a lot of people were just not able to get around. And we started with several platforms. We had a lot of data, but we weren't necessarily using it all. It was primarily a Nielsen-based science. That's changed a lot now. Sean, as you know, Planorama is where we started. You guys obviously bought that over and have integrated it, and we've enhanced it far more over the years. We've gone from that to a place where now it is a part of the ecosystem we live in every day. We started by staffing right, then investing in the right platforms, and then I would say enhancing the ones we did. Just to take yours as an example, where we were with Trax 3 years ago or 2 years ago is not where we are with you now. We found ways to quantify size of display. We found ways to look at adjacencies, so many new things that we weren't looking at before. Yep. So that's a bit of our journey in a nutshell. And we'll continue. It's not the end. We've got several more evolution to go through.
Yeah. The journey is never over. That's for sure. So you touched on it there a little bit, and I know we talked about it in the intro here, but talk a little bit about the role that image recognition plays in achieving overall display, great display execution that you guys are expecting to see.
Yeah. So image recognition for us plays sort of two roles. First, the shelf and understanding compliance to planograms, because you don't always have the data for every retailer or banner or every store. Even sometimes even the retailers don't have it. So it's a great way to collect that information and actually measure compliance. But more importantly, for Mondelez Canada, because of the categories we play in, the display component almost overtakes the shelf to some degree. And this has played an increasingly bigger role, primarily led by two things. One, it's part of a bigger digital global agenda to get more agile and get more future ready. And image recognition is one of those things that is part of that toolkit. Second, where we're going with display compliance, and actually the journey we've already been on, is compliance is something that is very hard to measure using just the traditional forms of data, such as Nielsen and a couple of surveys here, because even in the end of the day, even that data is sample driven. Where we're able to go with image recognition is get real-time data and get it for the whole universe. Depends on how big you want to make your universe, obviously. But you define that with what you buy in and do with it. We're certainly seeing the benefits of that day in, day out as we go across every store that we service. There's data points and things collected. We mine it in different formats to come out with the insights we want.
Yeah.
And it's a part of our rep scorecards. So this is a bit of why it's important, because for our sales reps, that picture taking, as much as some may not like it today because it's an additional task, it is a part and parcel of what they are charged with doing every single day.
Yep. Yeah. And incentivization is just so key when it comes, especially with field teams, when it comes to, getting the execution you expect to see. And that probably ties nicely into the next question around what are some of the biggest challenges in that journey to implementing image recognition, and, how did you navigate some of those challenges, even something like global needs versus local needs? What was some of the experiences there?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, Sean. I'd say, listen, we're still navigating. We navigate every day. That said, we've made a lot of progress. So we came from a time where the reps at the ground floor didn't understand, hey, if I give up 5 minutes of my time building a display, which is obviously very important and what drives sales, to now taking a picture of a display, which might take 30 seconds or a minute, but it's a minute I didn't have before. Mm-hmm. Why would I do that? Right. And that was the first challenge, and helping them understand. And we continue doing that through the right forums and educating them on the importance of data as power, and big data is really what helps us grow in the long term, has really helped. Yeah. And then global, local, that's also been interesting because different countries use image recognition differently, as an example, or any kind of data source for that matter. Like I said, we use shelf and we do display. Some of the BUs around the world tend to use it more for shelf. We kind of led the way in the display agenda, and now I think other BUs are sort of following that with measuring display as well. And we have our global forums. We have a gentleman from the US that leads the forum. We meet every month. We talk about these kind of things, building best practices, and then figuring out how to share and learn from each other. So that's kind of how we navigate.
No, that's great. That's great. And so appreciate that. And look, we've talked about the technology you guys are obviously leveraging, but let's just talk about execution excellence in general at Mondelez. And what does that really look like on the ground for you guys?
Yeah, for us, it's about, simply said, if I could say it in one sentence, it's about making your products more available, more visible, and more relevant every day. What does that mean? Be available is really just being in more stores. And in a country like Canada, we're pretty much almost everywhere, I would say, but there are parts of the world where it's very different. You go to a market like China, you have to really be in the e-com space in a big way, where over 40% of the goods sold there are in the e-com space. You go to a place like India, half of India hasn't tasted a chocolate bar yet, and that's a big category for Mondelez. So getting into those rural parts of India, these small shops are important, and that's a part of that ecosystem. That's one. And then I would say in a place like Canada, the visibility probably is higher than the availability. It's still availability. When you launch new products, you want to be everywhere. But the visibility, and what does that mean? It's being visible to shoppers, and visible to shoppers in a way it's relevant. So, hey, we'd love a cracker display, for example, somewhere near the cheese where they consume potentially together, or a salty snack display next to soda or carbonated water.
Nope.
It's the adjacencies that really matter as well, or our lovely Oreo next to milk.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a sucker for that one every time. So obviously, Sree, you got a lot of experience here, whether it's with Mondelez, previous roles, familiar with a lot of different markets. What are some of the things that you think people would be surprised to learn about the day-to-day realities of retail execution?
I laugh because every day is a surprise.
Yeah,
And
sure.
the best answer I can give you is it's never what you think it is. Now, it tends to be like if your team's good, and mine is definitely very good, it will be a version of what you have set out to do. And as long as you know your plan is not exactly equal to reality and there's going to be a bit of give and take, and a lot of things impact that. The biggest one we find often is just supply getting from the retailer DC to the store. Sometimes it's an issue we have on our side with the network. Sometimes it's a listing of a new product that hasn't quite made its way into the planogram yet. So there's always something that's different. Sometimes it's even you're expecting to see product 1, 3, 5, and 7 on display, and instead you find 1, 2, 4, and 6. And it's probably because that product didn't exist or wasn't there in that store. So, but this is where a good field team makes the difference, and they're adapting to the environment to make sure they can get as close
Yeah.
to the picture success as possible.
Yeah, pivoting is a very constant thing in this industry. I think that we see pretty often. And so, again, sort of shifting the conversation more to your partnership with your retailers. And so, first starting with, there's a lot of pressure on brands and manufacturers for flawless execution when it comes to, operating within a retailer's environment. So, where are you feeling that pressure the most, and how are you guys responding?
Yeah, this is a good one, Sean. So it's true, retailers are putting pressure, but then the best way to think about this is it's important to understand the why and then work to resolve it. Because as long as there's two parties, there's always going to be some tension, and we're both really chasing the third party, which is their shopper, our consumer, whose business is what we really want. So it comes back to end of the day, really understanding the retailer's priorities. At the end of the day, they want a better P&L. They want more loyalty for their stores. We want a better P&L. We want more loyalty for our brands. So as long as there's a meeting point, and I think the world has moved from, say, what we used to call JBP or joint business planning to now working together earlier, ideally, to create joint value together that benefits both parties. This then means you take a more customer-centric approach and a category-centric approach, because at the end of the day, what they don't want is noise. They want faster moving products, better ROI, smarter displays, and full shelves really every day. It's a fair ask, not easy to do. And we're adapting through that cycle. All of our customer teams and the customer leads that manage them, they have that embedded every day in their JVC process with their customers.
Yeah, and it's actually like a really good way to transition to the next one. In that, obviously, the retailers are going to put pressures on you guys to execute in a big way, but it's also a collaboration, right? Like you guys have a vision that you want to see through, and how do you ensure that your visions are aligning with the retailer? How do you collaborate with them, and what tools really help you guys there?
Yep. So I guess it's a three-part question, so I'll try to do this in pieces. So we have a process just like any other big CPG company on how we collaborate. I won't get into the nuances of it, but as I said before, joint value creation. We have an operating calendar. Retailers have an operating calendar. Oftentimes, what I've found over the 2.5 decades or so I've been in the industry is the biggest miss often, it's not actually discussing the plans or each other's priorities. It's just that calendar's not syncing up and it gets missed. So, for example, in Canada, we have a retailer, Sobeys. Their fiscal starts in May. Ours starts in January. So if you're talking about a January to December calendar, some of it's not relevant to their year and what they're thinking of. So it's important to think about it in their world and talk to them in their way, while obviously being very cognizant of their priorities and where they're trying to go. In the Canadian world, for example, right now, multiculturalism is a growing piece because of the immigration boom right now from South Asians and Asians. So it's a big priority for a lot of retailers. And how Mondelez responds to this is going to be important to how we win, right? So that's one part. And then I would say, adding on to that, is just having the right ecosystem in place. So having a touchpoint calendar, people connecting at different levels, not just sales to their merchant team, but a supply team to their supply team. I think COVID taught us a lot there on how important that is. Or even our marketing team with their marketing team, and our e-com team with their digital team. And it's an all-in, like, across the board connectivity, right across the org chart, is very, very important to that success.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so, now moving kind of away from the retailer relationship and more into some of the macro factors that you guys see, excuse me, in terms of trying to execute. So with today's inflationary environment, what's harder, getting products to the shelf or making sure they stay there and they sell?
Yeah, this is also a very interesting one, because I guess the easy answer is it's both, but it's going to vary a lot by category. I'm not the expert on on orange juice anymore, but I came from that world, and I'll say in today's world in Canada with the tariffs, it's been harder, I'm assuming, for those players to just physically even get the product there at a price that people want to pay. Or we've had our own share of pressures with cocoa costs. We haven't had the availability issue because we make a lot of stuff here. But on the flip side, there's a category like candy. We play in that. There's a lot of other players there. It seems to be very easy to get on shelf. There's a lot of players recently that have entered the fray. But it'll be interesting to see how many stick around. Because at the end of the day, the consumer is going to decide who they want. And, the brands that deliver on the product, the quality, and the visibility are the ones that will probably win. So it's going to vary really by category, I guess, is the easy answer there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's so true. So we've talked about a lot of the different things that go into retail execution, the various technologies you're using, the cost factors you're up against, the retailer relationships. So what's an example of, say, a major execution challenge you've cracked recently that you think every manufacturer should be paying attention to, as they go throughout their retail execution journey?
Yeah, I would say there's several big pieces that we're working through, but I'll give you a simple one that we literally just turned around in, I would say, in 96 hours, thanks to image recognition and some crowdsourcing that we use. And it was with a major retailer here in Canada, where we were supposed to have a certain kind of display, and it was in our chocolate category across most of the store network. And we found that compliance was 14%. We didn't think it was. We thought it was more like 70, and we were dealing with that. It's never hundreds, never possible. But just having the capability and a hunch from a couple of store visits that I happened to make got us started on a project. Literally 4 days later, we had all the data just the way we want. We took it back to our retailer partners. They were surprised too, and very willing to make the changes that needed to be made. And we are now correcting the problem. So that's a real-time example of something as late as 1 week ago that we worked on and have since worked correct.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the retail landscape is so vast. Even the major things can fall through the cracks, like you said. So it's good to have, solutions in place that can help you guys there. So, just thinking about more in terms of how you guys are operating in the current environments, and it's really no secret that costs are rising across all of retail for every manufacturer and every retailer. How's this affecting your teams, and how are you guys responding?
Yeah. Well, listen, inflationary environments across the board, I think, whether you're in Canada, whether you're in China or anywhere else in the world for that matter, some are hit more than others. We've taken sort of an approach. So I'll say cocoa first, just because that's public news. I'm not sure anything that you don't know already. Our global CEO has gone on record saying cocoa's quadrupled over the last few years. It's real. And in some markets, we make a lot of chocolate. It hurts us more. Other markets, we're not in that game. It doesn't hurt us to the same degree. Oreo has cocoa too, so there's an impact there. That's just one piece. There's several other pieces with whether it's storage costs going up, right, or warehousing costs going up. Different pieces have come in and put pressure, and it has made us all think of one word a lot more, and it's ROI, right? It's making our dollar work harder. And what does that mean? For us, what it's meant is finding ways to remove costs out of the system so we can absorb some of it versus passing everything through all the time, because that's not sustainable over a long-term period. And that could be something as simple as altering a display mix when it comes to execution, or changing the kind of corrugate you use, as long as it's still stable and stands and meets all the requirements for the retailer. Those changes are doable. On the flip side, it could be enablement through technology. And we talked about Trax here, Sean. I mean, we work with other partners too on different pieces. Technology has really enabled better ROI for us. And then we know if something is compliant or working, and we quickly enhance that, or if something's not working and we know it's not correctable, we walk away from it and we're not putting resources there. So it works both ways. It's helped us make choices that were harder to make in the past. That's how we're adapting.
Yep. No, it makes sense. And so we've talked a little bit about kind of the journey you guys have been on, where we're at today. And so now looking forward, what excites you about where retail execution is going in the next 2 to 3 years?
Oh, wow. Yeah, there's a lot that keeps me up at night, I'll tell you, on this. And even if I go back to my first day here at Mondelez to what we are doing now, my own team has come a long way, including myself, and we'll continue to learn every day. I think what excites me is the ability to go more granular. And what I mean by that is going from that one size fits all, which is long gone, to getting maybe down to the retailer level. Now we're talking about demography and certain areas of the country, to now really all the way down to the store level. Now, this isn't new. The science has existed for a long time. But the data that's available now is so much more powerful versus using sample data or survey data, where you're getting real-time data. It is basically census data for all practical purposes, if you want it to be, and then you can act on. So that keeps me excited. We're not all the way to bright. There's still a lot of exploratory pieces there, including enhancing internal capabilities of the teams to actually mine and process and use that data in the right way, because too much data can also be a bad thing if it's not used right. It can just confuse, right? So that's the journey we're on now. And then AI is a whole new piece. I don't even know where that's going to go. I wish I had that answer, but we're now starting to integrate AI into some of the work we're doing to understand how we can use that as a complement.
Yeah,
not a replacement.
I think that's a really good observation, obviously, with the emergence of ChatGPT and all the various AI agents that we've seen, come to the fray. What is the balance, do you think, between AI, automation, human expertise? I mean, I know we're kind of there already, but obviously there's going to be a lot more coming in these next few years. Where do you see that balance happening?
Listen, this one, I don't know how to answer this, because I don't think I have the answer. If I knew the sweet spot, I'd be running a different kind of company. But that said, it is very important, Sean, just like you said. AI is very powerful, and where it's going to go and the limits are, I think, still unknown. ChatGPT, I think, is just the beginning. I personally only started using that about 6 months ago. And I learn from that every day on how much faster it can bring the same information that you would often go Googling or looking on a browser for before, right? And similarly, I see the same, the data in Excel that we used to use before can now be accumulated very differently through AI.
Yeah.
I think it's dangerous if it's not used right. And the smarter ones are the ones who are going to find a way to use AI to complement things that already work versus trying to replace, which could go the wrong way. At the end of the day, you need people to still consume goods and services, and those folks need to be able to eat and drink and have jobs to pay for those food.
Yeah.
So I don't know where that balance is yet, but we'll see.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Sree. We appreciate the time. Peter, I know we're right at time here, so I want to pass it back to you to see if there's anything from the audience.
Yeah, thank you so much. Sree, Sean, that was a great conversation, and we really appreciate you sharing your perspectives. It was really neat to hear about the strategies and data that go into retail visibility, particularly in this environment of supply chain uncertainty. And I'm sure well, I know I'm not alone in enjoying that conversation because we've got quite a few questions from today's audience that I'm sure would love to hear from you. So let's see what we've received. Let's see. Let's start with this one for Sree. How do you measure progress or success beyond sales lift?
Yeah, this is a good one. So yes, obviously sales lift matters. I mean, it's the first probably KPI everyone has is looking at top line sales. Where we've taken that now further, at least when I'm talking about execution at store level or display, what have you, is measuring true compliance, and it's compliance to what we set out in the original plan. So, as an example, Retailer A has 500 stores, and we were anticipating a plan to be in display in 420 of them. Did we get there or not? We can do that very easily today versus waiting for Nielsen data for 4 weeks later to tell us you hit a certain ACD. Another way, and this is more recent that Sean's team's been working with my team on, is quantifying the actual size of display. So it's not just are you on display, it is are your displays physically bigger, smaller, the same as the year before that. And we're able to do that through the image recognition system today with some new capabilities. Yet again, it's are the right items and is it the right mix on display? So what we call internally our picture of success. How compliant are you with that? And we curate that obviously a certain way to hit certain items at certain times of the year or to promote an innovation during a certain program. All of this is how we measure success.
Yeah, that's a great answer. It makes a lot of sense to me. Here's one for both of you. When dealing with image recognition in stores, how do you deal with privacy of workers and customers?
Sean, you want to take this one?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and there's a lot that goes into the image recognition process. And like I mentioned at the beginning, this is a technology that's existed since 2010. So obviously, these questions come up all the time, and there are processes that we have built in place to ensure that there's no violations of privacy. There's no violations of interfering with workers. It's a really seamless process that has really become standard across the industry. And so there's obviously a lot that can go into it, but we enable the reps of an organization like Mondelez to use our software as they're going about their store visits. So it's inherent with their day-to-day work. And it's all done with the idea of improving the overall retail execution for everybody that's across retail. So whether you are the shopper, whether you are the retailer, you're the brand or the manufacturer, there's a lot that goes into that will have downstream benefits for all. And we've taken into consideration all those concerns.
And on a lighter note, what I'd say is Sean's system won't recognize if a person's standing in front of the display. You need an unobstructed view of the display with really nothing in front of it. So it works fine. Nobody's getting photographed.
Yeah, exactly.
It's honestly fascinating. Oh, okay. I'll turn this one to you, Sean, maybe then Sree, to see how you respond. How do you use the power of image recognition to drive commercial excellence with the understanding some execution fixes are solved outside of the retail structure?
Yeah, it's a great question, and no two use case is the same, right? We work with field forces like Shree's, we work with category management teams, and those are two very different problems to solve, right? There's more of an immediate solve when you think about a field force, somebody that's standing in front of the shelf and needs to make fixes immediately. And so there are KPIs and processes that we have built for that to address the immediacy of being in store and needing to make an impact. And then there are more macro level impacts that we need to make from a category management standpoint that again can be solved, but it becomes a little bit of a different conversation with the data. And so you can position the data in both ways that you can have a really, really huge effect in terms of how the rep is in store and interacting with the shelves and displays that they're trying to service. And then there's a totally different conversation with your headquarters teams and with your category management teams. And that's where I mentioned at the beginning, we solve some really complex retail execution challenges, thousands upon thousands of SKUs in a category. And how do you organize that category in the way that's going to optimize the performance of the branded manufacturer? And those are things that we do on a regular basis.
Yeah, I'll build on Sean's. I think he actually articulated that really well. It's the same data points, Peter, but we would put it together differently for different sets of people. So even going back to the simplest example, I talked about shelf planogram compliance, but those same photos can also tell you other things. It can talk about share of shelf, which a field team wouldn't necessarily be able to control or impact. But the category management team in headquarters would. It's the presence of innovation on the shelf that a sales planning team would go back and use with their stakeholders commercially as well. So it really depends on who's using the data and how we're presenting it to them. The data collected might be the same. The user base and the reporting would be very different.
Absolutely, quantity over quality I understand how that tension can exist there. Here's one for Sree, but maybe Sean can add something to it. How are you leveraging technology to connect to consumers' mobile wallets in real time with offers and jointly with merchant partners?
Yeah, so we're doing a bit of this in space. I would say that I am not close to it today. So in Canada, it's early work starting. The US team does stuff in that space. There's also other parts of the globe where they do that. The simple answer is here, we're not where we could be, but we are working on stuff for the future.
And I would add, just from a Trax perspective on that one, I mentioned it in the open a little bit. And when it comes to connecting with consumers, and I know they're shoppers, but often shopper is the consumer as well. Our shopper engagement platform, Shopkick, is a great way to get some insight into shopper behavior and drive some sales through them. And then there's also some things that we're working on from a connection, digital wallets and all that you mentioned that we're working on as well, that we'll probably have some more to talk about in the near future.
Got it. Which screens inside a physical store are you leveraging or investing in the most? Mobile, an in-cap screen, a screen at the entrance or a shopping cart, etc.
So here's the difference, that this will vary a lot by market, so it's not the same. I'll speak from a Canadian perspective. So with some of our leading retailer partners, Loblaws, for example, you would see the screen as you enter the store, or maybe by the HMR section. We don't have end-cap screens in Canada, and at least not in most of the stores that exist today. So we don't use that as much here. We do in some other markets, but it's going to vary. Varies quite a bit by market, Peter. And even if I had all of the market data around the world, which I don't, I probably couldn't share that in the open space. Whichever one makes us good ROI, that's the answer.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Here's one for you, Sree. Which team is the decision maker on spend and execution on in-store retail media?
Yeah, this has been it's an interesting debate because who really owns it has been something that we've debated internally, and not just at Mondelez. I've seen in other companies I've been at too. It is joint ownership at the end of the day, because where the money comes from could be a different bucket than the team that's executing it. So I'd say it's a collaborative effort in terms of where we put the money. Obviously, retail media is increasing year on year in a very big way. 5 years ago, it was in its infancy, not so much anymore. Any big manufacturer would see it as a complement to driving the business in the right way. And from the retailer standpoint, it's almost an essential toolkit that in any real big top to top, it always comes up, right? But I think we all jointly own it, whether it's the sales teams that might be the physical pair of it, whether it's your DCOM, ECOM, different companies use it different terms. team that is involved in developing the program or the offer, whether it's your shop or marketing team that is equally involved in it. So that ties back to brand marketing, or my team in that space is actually making sure it's all working.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really interesting about the retail media strategies that are evolving in real time, sort of. All right, how about
But
two more?
today it's that I would say it's a combination of the decom team and the customer team that probably own the strategy behind it.
Absolutely. Thank you. How about two more questions? Sree, and maybe Sean, if you have anything to add on this one. How do you keep field reps motivated when execution challenges feel repetitive?
Yep, this is not an easy one. Uh, so listen, even the task of taking a picture, I go back to that. It can get mundane after a point because you're just doing that again and again in different stores, right? I think recognizing the value of what you bring as a retail rep is very, very important. And some do, some don't. I think most of our team now fully understands why they're around, because a lot of companies don't have an extensive field team like we do, at least the non-DSD players. The DSD players is a different story of delivering the product. We see the value in that team, and we continue to invest there, and they know what the value is that they bring. How do we keep them motivated? It's really, we have meetings, and we have forums, town halls, other ways. Every fall we have what we call our rollouts. We're actually going to start them next week. I'll be in Winnipeg next week, starting the kickoff. These are the forums we use where we're interacting with each other, and it's two-way dialogue, trying to understand what they're dealing with, and also coming to them with, look at what you did and how it's helped us drive our business forward for the future, right? So that's really what it is. And when they see how they're vested in it and it impacts them, they're in.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and Peter, this is something that we hear from our clients all the time. And I think about two things, and it's incentivization and it's a little healthy competition. So obviously, incentivization being the first and pretty straightforward. Having skin in the game for those reps to execute what you want them to expect is only going to boost those results. I mean, obviously, if there's something in it for them, that it's going to motivate them to keep going despite the week over week nature of what retail execution can be at times. And then also we've done things in the past where we've created, scorecards and rankings and things like that. And we have specific events that will challenge reps to go execute. And, creating that kind of competitive spirit internally, I think is always something we've seen some pretty positive results with, especially from a field focused team. And another example too, and Sree and his team do this often, is creating challenges, right? Having very specific events throughout the year that are exciting, usually centered around events and things like that. And it really does a lot to drive execution. And it's been a best in class thing that we've seen from the Mondelez Canada team.
And sometimes you learn from other markets. I'll tell you something far, far away in Australia, they do something called the Cadbury Cup. And I asked the team down there, hey, is this like, do you pay differently? And no, it was just open, healthy competition, and the reps just do it now because there's prestige and bragging rights around it. Now we've monetized that too in certain years where we wanted more market share and turned into competition. It always works. That's always an extra piece.
I love that. A healthy competition. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I think we've got time for one last question today. Have you had to rethink your display or promotion strategies in light of rising costs?
The answer is absolutely yes. Because and it depends. I won't get into the nuts and bolts of it given time, but something as simple as shifting our mix, I guess, is the best way to say it. Whether you're focused more on cookie one or cookie two, depending on where you make more money or where you've had more cost pressures, or a certain SKU in our candy portfolio or chocolate portfolio that could be very different than another SKU. So mix management is probably the single biggest way we've thought about things differently. There's other levers, but I think mix alone is a huge lever by itself, which we're still learning. And lots of companies are still in the infancy stage of doing true mix management at a local level to win.
Great. Well, Sree, Sean, thank you again for this great content. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much, both of you.
Well, thank you, Peter, and thanks, Sean. It was great chatting with you as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Peter. Appreciate it. And thanks, Sree. Always good catching up.
Before we wrap up completely, let me take a moment to tell you about eMarketer's media channels. Well, first off, don't miss eMarketer's next summit on September 9th in New York City. Secure your spot and register for more webinars like this and subscribe to our newsletters, all at eMarketer.com. eMarketer's podcast also just got a glow up. New look, but the same great insights. Catch Behind the Numbers, Reimagining Retail, and the Banking and Payments Show on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And keep an eye on your email for the link to today's playback. And of course, feel free to contact us if you have any other questions. Thank you all again for your time. Thanks again to Sean, Sree, the team at Trax, and Mondelez International, and of course our eMarketer studio team behind the scenes for making this all possible. We'll see you on the next Tech Talk.